Well, hello, boys and girls.
Hi.
What a wonderful day it is today in our money-based economy. Well, sit back and relax and get ready for the guy who's about to ruin everything.
I'm puzzled. Are you really seriously suggesting that Jesus Christ was a mushroom?
Wayne, Jesus was a mushroom Roberts.
Yes. You are dealing with a secret cult, a secret society.
Welcome to Waning Interest.
Here we go. Waning Interest Podcast, number 9, Wednesday, May 1st, 2019. Why are you talking like William Shatner? It's probably from cigarettes. I have to take breaths quicker than other people and more frequent. That was Joe Cruz on the open, and that you hear on the promos, and Dunn did the production. His link should be in every description. CruzVO.com. The email, waninginterestpodcast@gmail.com. Waning with a Y. Patreon.com. Waning Interest. Again, with a Y. But I don't even know why I'm saying this shit. Pretending like it's radio that you can't just look, and because it's right there. Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Twitter, Wayne Roberts 811, because 9/11 was too much. Coming up, we have the Wednesday joke and the Wednesday radio story. Both of them I think you'll find fun. And I tease them to keep you on the edge of, well, I picture the toilet. I know it seems kind of hacky to say, but I imagine people listen to this while doing a Robert Wagner. I hope you got that number 2 reference. Some of you out there hear Robert Wagner and think, murderer? A lot of people think that. If you are one that has never heard that, it would be Natalie Wood that they're talking about. And if you're one that is thinking, who the fuck is Natalie Wood? Well, she's an actress, really pretty, been in some classics. I suggest you look her up. Gorgeous woman. I could see her. I couldn't see her today, though. I mean, part of me kind of says, as bad as it sounds, maybe it's good that she's gone. She doesn't have to see people in this new style. It's been around, I guess. These fucking tight pants with so much shit in the pockets, look. It reminds me of the fat guy in The Dark Knight where you could see the bomb inside him protruding. Kind of like, or like the alien about to pop out. I mean, that's like the hipster sort of what people are doing, I guess. The hip thing. It's fucking weird, especially the older the person. And now, I've also noticed, the kids are really into this climate change, especially the teenagers. The ones that I see a lot, most of the ones that I see, at least half, you can tell who's into climate change, because from the ones that wear their pants like they're expecting a fucking flood. What is that look? I can't, part of me that says that, and of course then I think back and remember when I had a mullet in high school. That's why you shouldn't say anything, Wayne. These are one of the reasons why I wish I was mute. Isn't that weird? That's so weird. Guy who does a podcast, radio for years, voiceover, he wants to be mute, and that's weird. I know it's weird. That's what I said. Are you going to say why? Well, I'm tired. No, you're stoned. Well, yes, that too, but I'm tired. Saying the same shit or even in different ways, and it's just you feel beat up. And you start to think more on the wavelength of Cypher from The Matrix, Joe Pantoliano's character, who said, "This is such a losing fight. What the fuck am I doing?" And wanted his mind erased. And I believe he wanted to have a good steak when he went back into the Matrix, and a lot of money. He wanted to be rich. You start to understand him a little bit more when you get to certain points. When you talk about the shit that I talk about and the people that I know that the shit that they talk about, that go a little farther and darker. I've done studying on some of that stuff that I'm not mentioning, but I prefer to keep it light because that stuff does beat you up. The farther you go down the rabbit hole. What? Matrix, I said, rabbit hole. The funny part was hole. But this tight pants look, it's what? Why I don't want to see everything that you have in your pockets. It's like you're giving away everything. Cargo pants are so much better. You got the fucking pockets. How about the skinny pants that are cargo pants? That sounds a little smarter. And the kids that don't wear their pants too high off their ankle, if they're not doing that, they got them rolled up like it's like Marty McFly in Back to the Future. Was it some comedy show the other night, and I think there were 8 comics and 7 of them had their pants rolled up at the bottom. That's the first sign to say, I ain't doing that. I always go against the flow. I'm back with all the skinny jeans. I'm back to my 527s, which are boot cut. So much comfortable. And they're kind of low rise. They're comfy. Low rise pants that's the best look for any woman, in my opinion. Hey, I've heard nobody mention Arya killed the Night King with a move that Rey used in the throne room in The Last Jedi. Have you heard that? I haven't heard that. I know there was foreshadowing with her practicing with Brienne. But that's what it reminded me of. Which, not saying they ripped it off, but even some of the music, this is Joker music. It's a lot. It's like a Game of Thrones is a real mash. They've done. Starting to notice more of the mash. Helps with the YouTube geek channels that I watch, which makes me a geek, but a Padawan. Well, I'm more than a Padawan when it comes to geekness. Yeah, totally. Depending on the part, depending on the genre. But what was my point? Oh, noticing that those shows pointing out a lot of the things that I'm talking about, like with the music, was actually very similar to the Joker theme from The Dark Knight. Parts that were straight out of Lord of the Rings. There were some other things, but I started to notice that. But at least they do it well. If you're gonna borrow from the best, or borrow from the iconic. And the complaints of the darkness, talking about episode 3, season 8 of Game of Thrones, by the way. Way to pre-sell it. Shut up. The darkness that a lot of people complained about, including myself, was supposed to be there apparently, which they did talk about on the post-show thing, I guess. Yeah. Whatever. But all the things that I've watched and everything that I've read, all the things that I've come across, whether on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube, nobody's mentioned that Rey did that same move in The Last Jedi, in the throne room. That was a badass scene. As much as I don't like The Last Jedi, that was one of the better scenes. How about Jeselnik's special Fire in the Maternity Ward? Holy shit, what a slayer. That dude is something. He's something. Great example of understanding the joke. Like for me, where people say you can't joke about this, you get a PC shit. Yes, you can. You can joke about anything as long as you make it funny. That's the comedian's job, no matter how dark. I mean, I love kids, but I can still laugh when Anthony drops kids on purpose in a joke. Down 3 flights of stairs. Way to stumble on that. You're welcome. You may have already seen it, but if you haven't, don't miss it. Anthony Jeselnik special on Netflix, Fire in the Maternity Ward. Dark, funny, killer hour. That's what a special's supposed to be. That's a memorable special. At least for me. Thoughts and Prayers, his last one. Same thing. Just as good. Dude is getting there to that Stanhope Burr level. Attell. And some others I can't think of right now. Slayer. I hope to be a quarter good. Told you I'm a minimalist. I'm having a Jonesy's jukebox on KLOS moment. Steve Jones reference. Hey, if you guys like hardcore truth-telling comics, follow Kevin Brennan on Twitter. Holy shit. That dude doesn't give a fuck. And apparently he was in a little scrape with another comic in New York. You can look it up. I'm not getting into it. But Kevin, man, the guy has balls that are so huge. What does he eat? Besides the little food he always brings in a bag, sandwich, wherever he goes. There's a minimalist. There's a frugal motherfucker. At least he walks his talk. He's funny. Follow Kevin Brennan on Twitter if you're not. I think it's Kevin Brennan 666. I don't know. His brother Neil has this 3 Mic special on Netflix, if you didn't know that. Whoever I'm talking to. Speaking of specials, it's time for the Wednesday joke. Every Wednesday, I do a joke of mine. Not that I'm trying to burn them or anything, because I'm so nobody. It doesn't matter. It's kind of a fun thing I thought I would do. And maybe even make some better. Or there's some that I haven't even used in forever. I've been doing that. I've been a stand-up since 2014. Just trying to remember the year. I was trying to think, was it 2013? No, it was 2014. I honestly don't remember. Like most comics they remember the date. A lot of people have the date remembered, or at least the month. I don't even remember the month, but I think it was June, May or June of 2014, I believe. I could do a little more digging to look it up, but I really don't care. But anyways, because, you would think 2014, it's 2009, so that would be 5 years if it's coming up. Well, it's May. So if that's true, I'm right around 5 years. So 1 joke a week, like it's going to hurt. And people do minutes on Kill Tony. They do other stuff, but whatever. What am I doing? Really bad fucking broadcasting. Didn't have to curse. Sorry. It's all right. All right. I haven't done this. I don't remember the last time I did this joke. Which is more of a story. And it's a chunk of a bigger bit. But I'll keep it at this little chunk. And it's about my mom. It's about me mom. And the first time I remember seeing her scared, which was when I was 7 years old, and she and my dad came home from seeing the first Alien movie in the theater. The looks on their faces scared me. The horrified look on her face and the shit-eating grin on his. The next time I saw my mom scared was a week later, the first time I got high on weed. I know that sounds bad, but my dad didn't mean it. He'd hotboxed the basement with me down there 100 times, no problem. So, obviously this was some good shit. I'm freaking out. My mom's freaking out. My dad's high as fuck. And now you know the story of their divorce. The last time I saw my mom scared, I gave her an edible and forced her to watch Alien again. That's not true. My dad went and did it before I had the chance. That has been the Wednesday joke on the Waiting Interest podcast. Yeah. Whatever. I mean, that was a decent performance, I guess. That was the first time I just pulled it out of my ass. Almost felt like I was reading it. I wasn't. I can't believe I got through it. And you know what I'm going to do to celebrate? To celebrate getting through that joke and you getting through it, let's move on to one of my favorite subjects that makes me almost spasm in wonder of why, although I know, but why people get so emotional, so quick on this subject. And then you can, there's many times where, I'd say half the time I brought it up when on all the big chunk of times that I'm referring to, maybe half the time I actually brought it up. The other half, they were talking about it, and I just went in, just kind of eased my way in, and then almost every time you can smell it getting, I can smell it getting close to violence. Because people get so upset, especially the way I talk about my version from the studying that I've done, bursting people's bubbles again, breaking through more lies, I believe that are lies, and there's so much to back it up. That one of those things we were lied to, where Santa Claus wasn't real again. The subject is Charles Manson. A few of the times when it comes to the conversations that I was referring to just a bit ago, a few of the times the conversation has started with, and I only meant to keep it that was, or at least in that realm. That's where it usually bursts, which is correcting the way people talk about Charles Manson when they say serial killer, when they say murderer, or when they say cult leader. He wasn't any of those things. But let's say he was. Let's go with the official story that Charles Manson ordered some people to kill some other people. And we call him a psychopath. Now, why don't we say that? And we say that about leaders of other countries. Why don't we say that about the leaders of our countries? I didn't mean to put an S on that, but whatever. That's part of our angle from the people that are, that tell the truth about the government. It's part of that angle of you know what I'm trying to say. Using logic, common sense, not letting the pot call the kettle black. I do myself no favors whatsoever, do I? So you can't say that about him because he didn't actually kill anybody. So you can't call him a murderer. So if he didn't kill anybody, and you can't call him a murderer, then you can't call him a serial killer, murderer, whatever the fuck. And you can't call him a cult leader because there wasn't a cult really. It's just a group of people, and where it really started, it was just the Manson family jams. Manson family jams, musicians. It wasn't a cult. And they make the girls out to be innocent and everything before they came across Charles. So how everybody sees it. They were doing everything that they did with Charles, they did before. He found a spot by himself, and they started gathering there, and it turned into music or whatever. Tex Watson is what drives me crazy, is the part of this. And don't get up, I'm not trying to make anybody upset. If you hear me out, I understand, and I'm not saying that Charles was Christ or, was the greatest guy. He was a pimp and a thief and did a lot of stuff in the underworld or whatever, but he wasn't the things that we're saying that he was. And if he was able to control people's minds and tell them what to do, why did he never walk out of prison? Why couldn't he do it to the guards? You're trying to tell me that every prison guard is, not capable of, nothing against prison guards, but we're not. If Charles is a genius, he could get anybody. He should be able to walk right out. If he's this genius that can control people's mind and tell them what to do. It's so pathetic, especially that it's part of the official story. Because it takes all the attention away from Tex Watson, who was the person who did all the slaughtering. And Tex was not some innocent person before he came along to Charles Manson, because Tex is also Charles, so refer to him as Tex. And that's part of the reason why a lot of the bullshit stuff that Vincent Bugliosi put together was mixing things up with both of them being called Charles when people would call the ranch. That's how it got. Some of the things got mixed up. The reason Tex Watson, in my homework, the reason Tex Watson did what he did was because he had to, because he had fucked up royally with other people in the underworld. And he went to Manson for help, and Manson said, I can't help you. You got to do what you got to do. And that got turned into, Manson told me to do it. Because Tex Watson was on some serious drugs. Hardcore speed. And he was nuts. And he would rip off other drug dealers. So that's what, and then, so he does all the slaughtering. In prison, Tex gets to get married, have conjugal visits first, and then get married, have kids, write a book. Is to do all these things. While Manson didn't actually kill anybody, wasn't there when anybody got killed, and he had to be in a very tiny quarters and couldn't have his guitar, couldn't have conjugal visits, couldn't do anything. Most of his freedom was just when he got out to sit and do interviews, where he usually got pelted by assholes like Tom Snyder and Geraldo Rivera. If you go back and watch those, I'll get to that. Hopefully, I'll remember to. But those are very important. All those interviews that you can go back and watch on YouTube, and just pretend. Just set aside what you know, which some people would say what you think you know. Like we always have to be able to see the other side and understand, well, why would people fucking say this? Because when I first came across it, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Kind of like Jesus was a mushroom. It's like, get out of here. Then I looked and went, oh, so some of the facts aren't even fact. The facts that we are told were never facts to begin with. And let's remember, Vincent Bugliosi was a lawyer. Doesn't everybody know what lawyers do? Yeah, there's some good lawyers out there, but he wasn't one of them. That man made so much money off this thing. And remember, here's one part. Here's a fact. Charles never even got to defend himself. That's not a real trial. Also, either before or during the trial, Nixon, the president of the United States, declared Manson guilty in the media. That should have been thrown out right away. That's a farce. You can't do that. And now, here's another one. If, let's say, let's stick with the official story that Charles did tell them to do it, and he was involved, but he wasn't there. That means that he should have been out of jail or prison in 17 years. Something like that is the law. Don't believe me? Look for yourself. So when this whole thing stacks up to where, wait, what? And there's also the fact that the FBI was watching the house where Sharon Tate and Abigail Folger and the kid outside that Tex shot first that was leaving, Jay Sebring, and the other guy, I can't think of his name. The FBI was watching that house. And you can look this up. One of the reasons was because Jay Sebring, at the time, was one of the biggest, he was a big hairdresser. He did Jim Morrison's hair. Did a bunch of people, Steve McQueen. But he was also one of the biggest drug dealers. The FBI was watching that house that night. That's a fact. You can look it up. I'm not trying to make you mad. It's just a fact. And that's why Tex was there to steal the drugs. That's what he's really doing. Not for Charles, not for Manson. He had to do some payback shit. And then he had to do the other thing. Because, as most people think that, just assume that Ms. LaBianca was, an innocent, whatever. She was a drug dealer. You can look, just do your own research. If you're afraid, just use a different browser on the Google and then, delete the history after you do your Googling and look into stuff. Yes, there's going to be stuff that tries to veer you away from it, but you got to dig a little bit. And people screamed about it back then. But they, hook, line, and sinker, they drove that thing home so... Remember, I'm not defending Charles, saying, remember, I'm not a Charles lover, all that stuff. I'm just saying this story is bullshit. There's a lot of other stuff. I mean, remember who Sharon's husband was. Everybody seems to be in agreement that Polanski's a scumbag, except for people that love his movies or whatever, another, a small amount. It seems like everybody kind of says stuff about because of what he's done. Maybe that was also another reason why the FBI was watching the house. But they didn't do anything. They let it happen. But this little guy, this little guitar playing outlaw, not a killer, just outlaw, thief, whatever. That's what he grew up in. That's all he knew. He lived, that's where he grew. He learned to play the guitar at the same place that he learned all that other stuff. In prison and jail and boys' schools and stuff. He didn't remember had a whole much time of freedom, poor bastard, so he was the easy scapegoat. Throw him in there. And treat him like he's Michael Myers, which is complete fucking horseshit. The story is more nuanced, but you have to get through the lies first. And there's plenty of facts to show that, with the fight that a lot of those people were doing for the environment. I look back now, they were trying to shut that environmental stuff down back then. Look where we are now. You think the two are maybe a little bit related? There's a whole bunch of things that go together. It's not just those two things. But seriously, take what I've said. Don't believe me. Look for yourself. But one of the ways to look for yourself, if you want to understand where I'm coming from and people like me, some are far freakier than others. Just like not all 9/11 truthers believe the same stuff. Not all Manson truthers believe all the same stuff. So we're not all the same. It's like not everybody from Indiana is the same. Everybody from New York, they are. Whatever. Fuck the Yankees. Have I said that this month? I have now. It's the first. Don't ever say that I can't think of the damn word.
Procrastinate.
You put stuff off. See?
Procrastinate.
That's one of the things that you get scared of when you're on stage. You're going to forget the damn word.
Procrastinate.
Oh my gosh, what is the word? You know what I'm trying to say.
Just told you.
I don't want to look it up. I want it to just pop in my head when it just comes because I'm not thinking about it.
It won't.
But getting back to what I was saying.
Finally.
If you're interested, anyone interested in understanding a little bit more of what I'm saying, the things that I've said on the story being bullshit and the facts that I have found that stick out. Now switch it over just for fun. Just forget everything that you know and come from that angle while watching the Tom Snyder interview and the Geraldo Rivera interview. Any of the interviews, they're all on YouTube. Any of the Manson interviews. Here's the funny part. Everybody treats him, Snyder, Rivera, treat him like shit. Poke the bear. Don't listen to him when he's trying to make a point. But who does do an interview and actually listen to the guy? Ron Reagan Jr. It's fascinating. Now remember, keep in mind the things that I've said, which of course, luckily this is recorded, so you can just go back, rewind, and think about those things and go, yeah, anybody else, what the fuck? The president said he was guilty in the media right before the trial or during the trial. You can't, that's insane. But imagine if we had this technology back then, this kind of shit, it would be different. It would have gone down different, but it still would have been a patsy bullshit thing just to kill the psychedelic era and people waking up to what was really going on and keeping the war machine going. Because remember, the people that were waking up were what? Anti-war. What the fuck is wrong with anti-war? I'm so sick of bleeding heart. Fuck you. Fuck you. Call me a fucking bleeding heart. Shit, while you wear a cross on your neck. I've had so many people say that to me. It's so funny. But take what I've said, or do your homework. For some reason, spacing, and I didn't write it down in my notes. spacing on the dude that Nicholas Schreck is one person where I've gotten the information that I'm going on. Nicholas Schreck is one of the handful of people that Charles would even talk to and from like 1988 until right before he died. He okayed Nicholas Schreck's book, The Manson File, was the only book that Manson actually was okay with out of all the books that were written about him. Yes, of course, you would say that, oh, well, that's because it's the one that showed his side. Well, yeah, you take both together, you put them both together, the stuff that you've been taught, and you look at this stuff and see where some of that stuff is, oh, that's bullshit. That wasn't even real. Wait a minute, Linda Kasabian, who was there for both killings, she got immunity, and she was a scumbag beforehand. If you look into her life story, she'd left her kid to go do shit. She was already pimping her own self out. She'd done all kinds of crazy stuff beforehand. She got immunity. She's having lunch with Bugliosi during the trial in Santa Monica. What the fuck? And then look into what she's done since. Continue to get in trouble. She was there. She got immunity and a lot of bullshit. She helped concoct the story. I mean, you got to get into it a little bit more. But either way, just take the lighter stuff, just that little chunk. And if you look into that part and then watch those interviews and see where Manson is trying to make certain points and they just cut him off or whatever. And then you watch those Snyder and Rivera and his assholes, which was, of course, not the way I saw it back in the day myself. But now I see, because I've been treated the same way. Most of us have. I feel like I've taken quite a bit extra. But whatever, we all have one of our own. We all have our thing, our cross to bear. Speaking of Jesus, was a mushroom. Did I tell you? Whatever. But you watch those two interviews, and then you watch the Ron Reagan interview, and you're like, oh my God. Well, this is an actual conversation where you can actually get information from somebody, and he's actually listening and not treating him like a dick. It's amazing to watch those three in progression. And knowing those facts, and then you go and you just see all these, go back and see all the way they the media warped all these things to make him look crazy. And a lot of those crazy faces he made on purpose because he knew it was his joke. It was pathetic, and there was nothing he could do. He had no backing. He was a little petty thief pimp. Who's going to back that guy? Just some people that actually were listening and understood, that were, and those people that they call the Manson family cult, it wasn't just them. It was all kinds of people. But there was a lot of dark stuff too that's into that, and I'm not getting into that. But there was a lot of other dark shit. It wasn't just man. He got all the lump, and that's what this point about. It's crazy. And as you know, most likely by now, if you're listening to me, you know what the media is like. You know how things get warped and how they edit things and then they twist things. You know that shit. And it was a lot easier to do it back then. We're talking 1970. 69, 70. The trial was in 70, right? If I remember. Whatever. But, again, gotten away from the subject, which is, the subject should be Tex fucking Watson. He's the one that did all the killing. He's the one that did all the slaughtering. And that's one of the things I'll do when some people are talking about Manson or whatever, and that's what I'll say. I say, wait, have you guys ever heard of, you guys know who Tex Watson is? No, who's that? Oh. And I'm thinking, well, you were just talking about Charles Manson and talking about him like you know the story, like it's, the Bible. But you don't know who the fuck Tex Watson is? What the fuck? It's like when I went to, it was so funny. I meant to, I got lost in a previous hour, whether it was the last hour or the hour before. I was talking about Guns N' Roses in 2016, the Not in This Lifetime tour. And this is the same kind of thing with, how can you talk about that? You don't even know who this guy is. I was about to tell the same story in a previous hour, Guns N' Roses show, where there was a group of guys that were on the other side of the aisle from me and my buddy Belmore, who was very high on an edible, and he wasn't a cannabis user, at least not at the time, that much. He might be now. It's been a while. What's up, Bel? Anyway, across the aisle, there was a group of dudes wearing Guns N' Roses shit, talking like they knew shit or whatever, right? And at one point, Axel says, I think he was talking about a song. He's like, we were trying to decide between doing this song or that song, and Frank said we should do this one. Boom, and they go into it. Can't remember the tune. But right before they go into it, one of the dudes goes, "Who's Frank?" Without any sarcasm. Frank's the fucking drummer, dude. You big Guns N' Roses fan, you don't know who Frank Ferrara is, the drummer? He's been the drummer for a good handful of years. Who do you think the drummer was? Posers. Makes me crazy, man. True poser. To me, forget the true poser. But I got to say that, to me, to start wrapping this Manson thing up, to me, everybody is a little bit of everything, right? Well, anybody that believes the official story of the Manson murders, the Watson murders, that belief is a sliver of your poser side. Everybody's got a little poser in them. I don't know what I'm going at. I was just riffing and thought I'd end up somewhere funny, and so far, nothing. Tex Watson. Tex Watson. Tex Watson. Tex Watson. Tex Watson. Have I said it enough yet? Yes. I don't think so. Tex Watson. Oh, wait. Did I tell you? Tex Watson. Start realizing more about the person that did the slaughtering, and you don't even know who it is, even though you think you know the murders. I mean, I was the same way for a while. It's fascinating. And I know a lot of us don't have time to go into this stuff, and I got better things to do than go looking into Charlie's dead now, blah, blah, blah. But it's an example. I know he's dead now, but it's fucking sad because he got railroaded hardcore. And again, no, I'm not saying Manson was Jesus Christ. No, I'm not saying Manson was the perfect neighbor. But the fact we already know that the fact is he didn't kill anybody. And also, most of us don't even know who the fuck actually did all the killing. And at the same time, we have a problem with people like me calling the leaders of our government killers for ordering death all the time. And keep giving more and more money to the military industrial complex. And not to the needs of what we really need, while it just continues to fall apart and nothing truly actually happens. And it's just these little tiny incremental steps, and it's fucking bullshit, and it needs to fucking stop, and money's the whole reason. But we've talked about that before, haven't we? Yes, we have. So we don't need to do it right now because we have other things to talk about, like the Wednesday radio stories. So, yeah, let's move on. Did I say Tex Watson? I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the fighting about it. It's just information, and then it gets personal. So I want it to stop. Either way, ladies and gentlemen, it's 50 past the hour. It's time for the Waiting Interest Podcast. Wednesday radio story. This one, it should be fun. See how it comes out, the way I spit it. Figure I'd make it really exciting and talk about when I got fired. Willingly, kind of. Mostly. Sort of. I mean, I would have kept the job if they'd have said at the end, you know, you don't have to do this part, but either way, it was fitty-fitty. I know my fitty-fitty. So I worked for 3 years. I worked for this big radio syndication company. Shall remain nameless. It's not their name anymore anyway. They've all so many times since this time. They're still the same, but not. But worse, as far as I know. Like the building one of the buildings I used to work in, it's a mausoleum now because it's all so much automated, and it's just. I visited Florida one, and I went, oh, where is everybody? It's kind of sad. There's no life to it, but radio sucks, and that's why I don't do it anymore. But this isn't my last job, my last radio gig. This is one before that or before that. I don't remember. There's a couple. So, I was the only person that could produce, technically, every show on the floor that I worked. Every show that came out of that building. Because a lot of shows came out from other places, or at least that floor. Some other floors, other shows were recorded, some were recorded across the country as a syndicator. So some shows came from New York, some shows came from Texas, some shows came from Florida, all over the place. But all the shows that were done right there from that floor, I could do them all, and I was the only one. And one of the shows that I did many different things. I was the utility guy. I was the, who was I? I was the Wes Welker, right? I was the Julian Edelman. I said Edelman. I was kind of like that. I guess sort of like, it used to be called a scat back, sort of, I guess, but whatever. We do a utility and baseball. Let's stick with fucking baseball. What am I saying? Utility guy. You can do it all. I can do it all. Not that much, but whatever. So one of the shows that I was a technical director for was, see, the way they did the syndication where they would rerun the previous day's show. So if a show was going on a Tuesday night, say it was going on at 10 p.m., at 6 p.m., if it was a 4-hour show, at 6 p.m., the feed we would feed the previous night's show. Because some stations would take it that way. They didn't take it live. They would take the refeed the next night. So for a lot of the show, I was basically there for 2 shows every night when I worked for this show. Run back the previous show, and then we went live for the next show. Well, the top of the hour, that's our break. We get a window, make a phone, if we need to make a phone call or go to the restroom or go grab something to eat or whatever. Get that little window. It was 9 o'clock. Now, you're not supposed to mess with people that are running the board for a nationally syndicated show. You don't mess with the people in the control room, in that room, in the studio. That's going out over the airways. You don't fuck around with that. Everybody knows that. And the person that came in knew that rule. They needed me to edit something that was going to take 5 minutes and wasn't going to be used on the air for 4 hours. I had all the time in the world to do it. It was 9 o'clock. That was when I would call my daughter to say goodnight. I was on the phone with my daughter. Coworker comes in and making this little piece of production seeming like it was a measles outbreak. We got to get this fixed. Get this done as quick as possible. I'm like, dude, I'm on the phone. And he just stands there and stares at me like he's waiting for me to get off the phone to finish the conversation. I mean, I'm still also doing my job right there at the board. And I go, dude, what are you looking at? Leave the studio. I'm on the phone. I'll be with you in a second. And he just stares at me some more. And I stand up. Get out of the studio, dude. And he runs. He runs. He leaves the studio. And in there, I had said, sweetie, let me call you right back. I hung up the phone, and then that's when I stood up, and then he left. So I called my daughter back to properly say goodnight, set everything up, ready to go. I go down the hall to his office. He's sitting in his office at his computer, and I just stand there at the doorway. A few seconds go by, and he goes, what? I don't say a word. What? I go, fucking sucks, doesn't it? Somebody just standing over your shoulder, just watching what you're trying to get done. You're doing your job. What the fuck are you doing, dude? You know better than to come into the studio and do that. What are you doing? Well, I needed you to get that done. I go, dude, it's going to take 5 minutes, and it doesn't air for 4 hours. We're fine. I go to leave. I walk down the hall. I take a few steps down the hall, and I hear, yeah, you were probably just on the phone with some chick. I go, it was like the Marty McFly thing. You call me a chicken? And I go back to his doorway. And I stop and I look at him. I go, dude, 2 things. Number 1, I was trying to say goodnight to my daughter. Number 2, it's none of your fucking business who the fuck I was on the fucking phone with, you fucking asshole. And I went back to the studio and finished doing my job. This was a Friday, I believe. I come into work on Monday. Get in, log into the computer, check my emails real quick, get settled. I'm like 25 minutes early. I get a call from my boss to come down to his office. And I'm like, he sounded kind of weird. I go down there. There's the human resources person. And they want me to tell my side of the story. I let him tell us his side of the story, and then I drop in all the stuff that he left out. I go, wait, he left this stuff out. He left that stuff out. And I go, you guys, you know what? I'm not playing this game. This is for children. I'm going to go back and do my job. I didn't sign the write-up. And they wanted me to sign the write-up. And I said, no, you could throw it away. A month later, they called me and fired me. And the lady that had to fire me and do all the paperwork, she's shaking. I go, sweetie, right in front of my boss, it's okay. I'm happy. I don't want to have anything more to do with this corporate horse shit anymore. This is for babies. It's okay. Poor thing was shaking. And there's my Wednesday radio story. Whoa, I wish I had some music. Am I forgetting anything? That was fun. I breathed a lot better for a few months, I'll tell you that. And then I got another gig at, one of those smaller places, and it was a lot cooler for a while. We'll get to that some other time, I think. Either way, what I want you to do is watch Redacted Tonight, Jimmy Dore Show, Kim Iverson, Abby Martin, Corbett Report, Tinfoil Hat Podcast. Look for yourself. I'm just here to be a fun, babbling lecturer. Remember, we are all Neo, a.k.a. 1, whatever. Sorry we ran long, had to bump comedian Ian Edwards. Thanks, Gary. I love you? Yeah. Stop looking at me, man.